So Dustin Brohm, host of the Massive Agent podcast, recently walked away from eXp Realty after 6 years, leaving behind a 350 agent network and a full-time income in revenue share to join Real Broker. So today we're going to take a deep dive with Dustin to exactly why he made this decision to move his business over to Real Broker, how it's influenced him and the agents in his network, and what his thoughts are on Real Broker's technology, culture, and community. Let's hop in. So today we're talking with Dustin Brohm of the Massive Agent podcast. This podcast is in the top 5 on Apple Podcasts for the real estate industry. He has over 300 reviews on Apple Podcasts, and he's built a great big personal brand around this. Dustin, how you doing today?
Doing awesome, man. Thanks for having me, Malcolm.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd love to pick your brain about why you made a decision to come and join Real Broker. I've been an agent here myself for 3 years now. I love this company. I'm super excited to see you come over to this company as well. Can you talk to us a little bit about like what attracted you to Real Broker in the first place?
Yeah. So the last 6 years I was at eXp, and I honestly, coming into 2024, I was not looking to leave eXp. I was not looking at a different brokerage, but I learned that some of my leaders within my organization were looking at Real. And so it forced me into a position where I had to really, I had to question if I was building the right thing in the right place. And I didn't want to lose these leaders, and they were like, look, you need to look at Real or I'm out the door. I'm like, all right. So I just started to really ask some tough questions about where I was at. Was I happy? Was I not? Was it worth pushing forward? Asking all these questions that I didn't plan to this year. And during some of that research, I mean, quite honestly, your website, some of your articles that broke down eXp versus Real by the numbers was super helpful, especially how you take one topic at a time instead of like trying to lump it all into one, like, the revenue share and then the stock and, all cost of doing transactions. That was helpful because it helped me to realize, okay, Real is actually a much cheaper place to do transactions. And I've known that for a while, but I wrote Real off because if I'm being honest, I had my eXp jersey on super tight.
Mm-hmm.
And most of my business is built on the revenue share model. I have a referral based sales team, if you will, but it's really a revenue share based organization. And so because Real only has 5 levels of revenue share and eXp has 7, I'm like, well, 7's better than 5. Like, how could 5 be better than 7? And it was stupid, but I wrote it off. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, Real is just a cheaper place to do deals, but it's much less lucrative. Like I said those words to so many people.
Wow.
But then when I finally dug in, once I finally wanted to really understand, honestly, like why I was losing so many people to Real, why so many of my agents were leaving for Real, and why people were just choosing Real instead of us. I'm like, okay, I need to understand what's happening over there because it can't just be a cheaper transaction. And I told myself too, I was like, if I'm going to make a move, if I'm going to potentially leave behind 340 agents and unvested company stock and this 6 years of this machine that I've built, it can't just be to save a little bit of money on a split. It has to be more than that. Yes, if you can do cheaper transactions, that's fantastic. But then one of my mentors came to me and he told me, this is someone that with over 1,000 agents at eXp. And he said he was looking at Real because the revenue share was better. And my first reaction is, screw you. Like, shut up. I don't believe it. And then he showed me a calculator. He gave me some examples of agents at Real and what they were earning in revenue share. And I compared it with mine. And I realized pretty quickly, holy shit, I've been operating for years based on misinformation. I've just believed something that just flat out isn't true. I think maybe at one point eXp was more lucrative for the average agent, but it's not anymore. And once I looked at it, I'm like, there's people with half the amount of agents in their organization making more money than me in revenue share. Yeah. And they're actually keeping the agents that come. And at eXp, I was losing half. Like I was losing half. Bring 2 agents in, one falls out the bottom of the bucket.
Wow.
And that changed everything for me because, and look, this may rub some people the wrong way, but that's my business model, is the revenue share. That's what started me really exploring what else I believed to be true that wasn't. And so it started with that. And that got me to really want to know more. It's like, okay, if I could actually do what I'm doing now, but make more money there, what else? Like, is that worth doing? Is that the best thing for my agents? Is that the best thing for me? And as I started to look at the technology, at the culture of collaboration, of how you guys don't allow silos, we don't allow silos at Real. You
Right.
know,
You can't say that
none
anymore.
of, right. I have 6 years of programming I'm trying to undo here.
Yeah.
Um, you don't have this crap where it's like, hey, oh, yeah, sorry, you're not in our downline, so you can't come to our event. Like, that crap happened all the time at eXp.
Yeah.
And if I'm being honest, I contributed to it because that was the game, right? I had to build my own shiny silo with coaching and resources and tools and all this stuff to make people join us. But if you join somebody else, you don't get it. And like, while I understand that, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, it became a bad thing. And we'd see agents get stranded where they join with somebody and it doesn't turn out the way that they were sold that it would. And they're stuck. They have no choice but to leave the company. And that's just shitty, right? So I start asking, what's best for the average agent? It's like, okay, yeah, cheaper transactions, no monthly fee, especially after 2023. That's a bigger deal than I was giving it credit for. It's a much bigger deal. And I was losing agents to Real because they didn't want the monthly fee anymore. And so I'm like, that's great. Is the stock going to grow? Because at eXp, we have stock. I looked at Real and what they're doing, what they spend their time building, what they invest in, what they don't invest in as a company. And I realized they're not just growing for the sake of growth. They're only doing at Real what actually moves the needle for the average agent. And I started to see that in the way that technology is built and the programs that they have and they don't have. And I'm like, this is a company that I believe will do all the right things, will continue to grow, and the stock will grow like crazy, in my opinion. And so I'm like, okay, that's great. If I'm going to be getting stock in a company, I want it to be a stock with a lot of upside potential. eXp's ship sailed back in 2020, 2021, when it went from $8 to $160 a share. I remember what that was like. It was great. I certainly didn't sell at the top. I learned a lesson, but I see something like that possible at Real that's just not in the cards at any other brokerage. And then the culture, the technology, it sounds so elementary and basic, but when you have one login to access literally everything and it's all in one place and it all works seamlessly, like that should be expected, but it wasn't happening elsewhere.
How interesting.
And so I saw the technology, I saw that the Real app and the transaction management and the Real Academy, and it's like, it's just built correctly.
Yeah.
And then I started to have conversations with some of my agents, and they were like, you know what, we've been looking at Real too. And it just became so much easier because we're like, wait, we're just doing the right thing in the wrong place. And so a lot of us moved over to Real, and I've been there for just over 30 days now. And it's been much better than I even thought it would be.
That's great, man. Well, happy to hear that you're liking it here. That's a really interesting point that you brought up about half of the agents that you brought into eXp have left the company and left your downline. Yeah, that's got to be incredibly frustrating. And we really did kind of try to design it for the average agent, right? We don't have that seventh tier of $4,000, but our cap's $4,000 cheaper, so it benefits the average agent. And I think that because of that, our retention rate probably is a lot higher than at some of these other companies. So if you actually build a network here, it's more likely to actually sustain that than losing it, within the next year or so.
Right. Yeah.
So now you've been here for a little while. Let's talk about the technology. Like, technology is obviously really important to a lot of agents. What is like your thoughts about the technology that we have here at Real? And do you have a favorite piece of tech that you get access to here?
The Real app. I'm not heavily personally invested in transactions right now, or heavily involved in transactions. But the Real app I use every day. It's where I access the training. It's where I access the marketing materials. It's where I access my wealth plan, revenue share data, all of that stuff. And if I had to describe it, EXP, look, I'm not trying to badmouth EXP. I'm just sharing my opinion. Their technology it's like they built it for, and I've heard that this was the case. They built it for 5,000 agents, and then they hit 5,000 and they're like, oh, now we've got to we got to build it for another 10,000. And they kept doing this. And so it feels like stuff's just bolted on. So there's another program with a login. There's another program with there's all these things added on. And then there's a lot of stuff that they just don't have. Like they don't have a mobile app. Like how do they not have a mobile app?
2024.
Yeah. Exactly. And like with all the revenue they have and all the thousands of employees, how do they not have an app? And it's just like, it was crazy to me. And then once I experienced Reels, it feels like it was just built from the beginning with a bunch of agents in mind. So they don't have to keep rebuilding and adding on and fixing and patching. And so it sounds so basic and common sense, but it's such a big deal. And so every agent that I'm connected to that came with has said it's 10 or 100 times better than EXP's. Wow. I've even heard former Compass agents saying that despite them investing $1 billion on technology, Reels app and infrastructure is better. So that's crazy. It's just simple.
Yeah. And that's all thanks to Pritesh Damani, our Chief Technology Officer. Got a great interview with him, actually interviewing him again in a few weeks to talk about all the new technology that they're rolling out with, because now we have a consumer app rolling out with Real Wallet here in Q2 as well, which I'm excited about.
Oh, yeah.
So we got a few minutes left. Talk to us about the culture here at Real Broker, what your experience has been with that, and kind of what's your thoughts on the culture, and I guess culture and community kind of go hand in hand here at Real.
You can tell that it's a top priority for the leadership at Real, the executives and the agent leadership, that everyone is open and collaborative with everybody else, that it doesn't matter who your sponsor is. It doesn't matter whose downline you're part of. It doesn't matter where in the world you are. If you're part of Real, you're part of Real and you have access to everything. And that's so refreshing to me, because if you think about it, thinking about it from the lens of what's best for the average agent, well, not keeping courses, coaching, masterminds, tools, not keeping those things from agents based on who their sponsor is. It's just asinine to think that that's just how I operated for so many years, that no matter who you join with, you get access to one Real. It's one big community with no walls. And that creates this incredible collaboration where everyone is, first off, to join a company like that, you're of a certain mind, right? So you get like-minded, collaborative people that want to contribute to that. And so you don't have people trying to play by a different set of rules. They join Real because they want that set of rules. And so everyone is helpful. Everyone's friendly. Everyone's collaborative and like, hey, you want a listing presentation? Here you go. Like, no one asks who your sponsor is. No one asks who your sponsor is here.
Yeah.
And that's been so refreshing. And you can tell that it's just woven into the culture from the agent leadership and from above, with Tamir and Sharon and the rest of the executives. It's just baked in, and it's self-policing. And so I believe it's built in a way that will weed out bad actors and those that don't want to play by those rules, because they're just going to find out, hey, you don't fit in here. And if they straight up break the rules, I mean, they're just shown the door. So
I've seen that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it, man. I all of the numbers look amazing at Real. I think we give away more free stock than any other company. We give away more rev share than any other company. Our technology is amazing, but out of all that, I think our culture is like the top thing that I would rank as like the best thing about Real Broker. And yeah, that's kind of like where everything starts, is the culture of the company. Well, Dustin, I really appreciate your time today, man. If anybody wanted to follow you, what's the best way to follow you?
Thank you. Yeah. Massive Agent on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, everywhere. And then the Massive Agent podcast, give it a listen wherever you listen to podcasts. And if I could ever answer a question for you, be helpful. If you want me to dive deeper on my reasons for switching. I did a podcast episode a couple weeks about why I left eXp for real. But shoot me a DM. Happy to help.
All right, man. I appreciate it. I can't wait to meet you in person at the Rise conference this year.
Yeah, buddy. I'm excited
All
for
right,
that.
buddy. I'll see you.